The legendary shinobi duo, the 7th Hokage Naruto Uzumaki, and the Shadow Hokage and the last of his clan Sasuke Uchiha. And the New Republic's hope, the son of the Chosen One, Luke Skywalker. Who would win if these legends would face off in a bout? And who would stand as a legend and who would be forgotten amongst of the pages of fiction? With Luke as his legit first start of his Jedi training, while blindfolded is able to react and block the blaster fire. And he is shown later on, while stronger, is able to go relative to his father Darth Vader, who's not only consistently reacted to blaster fire and at almost any in all directions with no effort, with blaster lasers being stated to be beams of light or move at the speed of light if not near in almost every media, including the legend comics or novels, as this is just even more blatant. With Luke towards the end of his run easily being at that faster than light range of speed, but with the more calculable feats coming from his father in his youth, which he's able to react in hyperspace and stop the shit right before they hit in the right time. With this feat including many variables and other calculations and statistics of the universe's size and how it travels and such, this feat gets into dozens of thousands of times the speed of light if not more. But this is Legends Luke we're talking about, and all this type of speed can be applied to even his movie variant. Luke's higher speed feats do involve taking a closer inspection of the aforementioned hyperspace reaction feat. As in Legends, it's stated that hyperspace exists outside of time and space, making hyperspace travel an accessible speed. With Anakin being able to react in this would also give him said speed. This is only consistent as Luke can exist and move inside the beyond shadows, which in said dimension, not only is time seen as an illusion, but is also reiterated upon that time just doesn't exist there at all. This would make it consistent that Luke has this inaccessible speed, which inaccessible speed is defined as movement in zero time. Luke's attack potency is as equally impressive as his speed. As we've already established, he does scale to his father Vader, who is not only able to take consecutive force lightning shots from Palpatine, which is stated that he was using his full power, and even Palpatine notes the fact that he isn't indeed strong enough to kill him, which Vader only died due to him being mentally weakened at the time and legit being a conductor for electricity. Palpatine, not even at his strongest state, can not only control but also create force storms. Force storms just being hyperspaces. A hyperspace is colloquially defined as a space used for travel and is higher dimensional in nature, with this notion being supported in Legends as it's stated that they have a higher spatial dimension separate from the temporal. With Palpatine's storms being also stated to be a threat to the universe as well, which is stated that the universe inside Star Wars is verbatimly stated to be higher dimensional. So depending if you think that he was only making hyperspaces or could destroy the universe, Palpatine would be 4th to 5th dimensional and Luke by proxy. To go any higher for scaling with Luke, we must go over Legends cosmology. With the dimension known as other space being stated to be a dimension beyond that of the universe, if you interpret that this is beyond it dimensionally, which just can be consistent as it's prefaced on the fact that it's beyond the same normality of it, this would make it 6th dimensional. Luke actually scales to this and beyond to this as he somewhat scales to the being Ozwaru, which is stated that he is extra dimensional being, with most people in the Star Wars verse being aware of and travel to other space. And if he is extra dimensional in comparison to that, then Waru would be 7th dimensional. Now granted, Luke doesn't fully scale to them as it was in fact stated that he could have killed him if he wanted to, but the fact that he just doesn't die instantly does show he has some scaling relatively to him, which alone he would scale to in the future at his strongest. And with the final aspect of the cosmology being the Force, the one encompassing force of the Star Wars cosmology in either interpretation, it's bare minimally stated to be infinite in comparison to everything, as well as being stated to be beyond comprehension as a general, with people like Luke being able to comprehend higher dimensional beings and structures. With it being completely beyond said comprehension as a general, it can be consistent making the Force at least bare minimally is infinite 7th dimensional to even 8th dimensional if he thinks beyond it dimensionally. With Luke being able to manipulate the Force with his attacks at his fullest, he could have attacks either on the lowest end or hacks at least on the infinite 7th dimensional degree to even 8th dimensional, making Luke's attack potency anywhere between low complex multiversal at its lowest to complex multiversal at a mid-ball. While there are higher ends for the cosmology or its entities, but I don't have enough context or enough extent the knowledge of the verse to argue this at this time, so I think this is a general scale for now. Now Luke, from what I know, doesn't have the most hacks of his verse, not to mention the Jedi aren't the most hacked side of the Force. Besides some amazing swordplay with his lightsaber, he's able to use the Force offensively. The Force is not only stated to be omnipresent repeatedly and blatantly, which is consistent as it's repeatedly stated that the Force binds all things in existence together. The Force itself is also conceptual / transdual in nature, as it's stated that it embodies concepts like the past and present, life and death, everything and nothing, good and evil, within and without, limitless and sublime. Even Force entities or aspects of the Force are embodiments of said concepts like selfishness or selflessness. This only brings more consistency as it's stated the Force is a metaphysical force. Metaphysics being defined as a branch of philosophy that deals with the principle of things and abstractual concepts, all making it very consistent that the Force is conceptual. And not only can Luke attack you on a conceptual level, but he can also resist these levels of attacks as well. Now, I've already gone over KCM2 Naruto and warrior scales in a previous video, so I recommend you go watch it. But continuing off, a base 6-path stage 1 Naruto was able to bully a Jubi Madara with just one Rinnegan. And Madara's most notable feat in the states when he seemingly grows the God Tree roots across the whole world. With this feat being placed or calculated at upwards of large planetary, and this level of power can be consistent as he's stated to be close or approaching Hagoromo's powers before he even gets to the God Tree and the second Rinnegan hand. This is important because Hagoromo, even before absorbing the Ten Tails and became his Jinchuriki, was able to create the moon via sealing Kaguya, with the most atrocious low balls getting his feet up to large planetary easily, further showing the consistency. But when actually scaling using the lower and middle ends, not trying to drastically lowball his feet into oblivion, it gets a dwarf star closer to small star level, and again this Madara would scale to this easily, and in that 6-path stage mode, base Naruto was able to absolutely bully him. But when you introduce characters of the likes of Kaguya and Momoshiki, the scaling goes from a 1 to an 11. There are a few interpretations on these guys and the feats they perform, but I need to go over why they scale to their specific feats I'm about to list. Now, Kaguya's realms has been a contentious topic in the community for years, but it mostly comes down to whether her or Naruto scales to it. Now, there are a few ways to prove that Naruto scales to her realms, one being the expansive True-Seeking Orb. Not only can Kaguya just chill inside it and leave without suffering no damage, and then a raid jump to Naruto is not only able to cut her arm off, but is able to give her multiple wounds with his Sage Art attacks. And if you say she just resists her own jutsu, that's fine, but then you run into the argument that Naruto can produce an even more potent chakra than even she can resist. Which, by the way, this was going to destroy the entire time space of her realm. And Kaguya herself was legit producing enough chakra to grow the True-Seeking Orb, so it would do that. But even if you disregard this for some reason, in the events of early Baruto, the downplay becomes irrelevant. As in the battle between Momoshiki, Naruto and Sasuke performed the Majestic Attire Susanoo. And in the bonus ninjutsu directory, it states that the Majestic Attire Susanoo wasn't just the strongest offensive and defensive, but the strongest jutsu to date. Which the expansive True-Seeking Orb is a jutsu. And the Majestic Attire Susanoo's power is not in hacks, but in raw defense and attacking power. Meaning they would be more potent than the expansive True-Seeking Orb. Mind you, this was just Sasuke plus Naruto, meaning they would have half the power to do this. More importantly, this Naruto and Sasuke were heavily nerfed, as Naruto was only at half his power while Sasuke was heavily drained from using space-time ninjutsu. So ironically, Naruto by himself would be this strong, Sasuke respectively. So for the actual scale of Kaguya's realms, it is depicted to have many stars in her realms. Even in the official OVA of Baruto, we blatantly see a star just chilling in the background, as well as her realms contain night and day cycles, just further showing that these realms contain said celestial bodies. And when calculating said feed being calculated upwards of solar system level, however, there is a higher end. With the introduction of Momoshiki, we were introduced to his dimension, in which it stated that he created it. Just based off the visuals, we say it contains many planets, stars, and even nebulas. Just at first glance, this would be a multi-solar system dimension, but with a closer inspection, we see that it also contains a redshift nebula, in which a redshift nebula shows the existence of not only galaxies, but as well as a universe, an expanding one at that. But even without that, it's been stated that this is a parallel dimension or even a parallel universe in outside sources to the Naruto universe, in which again again, it contains many stars, nebulas, and even galaxies, even at a point being stated that it's considered boundless. Now, if we take this hyper literally, boundless means to have no limits and a synonym in reference to infinity, as well as the context that things inside Naruto have existed for quote an infinite amount of time, and with the aforementioned expanding universe provided from Momoshiki's dimension, in which it being parallel to Naruto's, this could mean that the Naruto universe has been expanding for an infinite amount of time, or make it an infinite sized universe. Though I understand the speculation of this argument, but I think it's something worth mentioning and is viable. But for the real war-followed feat, again, it comes from the light novel, in which it stated that not just Momoshiki's dimension, but also Kaguya's was a hyperspace. Now, the kanji being used is Akukan, now which yes does both mean hyperspace and subspace, while mostly meaning hyperspace, so we need to look inside the context of said dimensions. For one, it doesn't fit the definition of a subspace, as it's not another space located inside another said space. It more fits the definition of a hyperspace, as its hyperspace is used for means of travel, for an example, and the only ways to get to these dimensions is again used for ways of travel. As well as we already have an already existent subspace inside Naruto, is when using transportation and teleportation jutsu, you are transported inside a subspace to get to your point, which almost fits the definition of a subspace to a T, making the dimensions most accurately represented as the definition for the hyperspace. And hyperspaces are higher dimensional in nature, or 4D, meaning characters who scale to Momoshiki as he created his own dimension and was draining it simultaneously, or even Kaguya with a pre-established scaling line, she would also be 4D. So essentially you have Naruto at Universal Plus, and if you think Momoshiki's dimension is actually infinite, it would be an infinite 4th dimensional structure, or potentially multiversal plus attack potency. In the past, I've gone over some lower Naruto characters in the war arc and how they far surpassed the speed of light. But rather than going over how many multiple times they've surpassed that from going from character upon that character stronger than that one, I'm instead gonna be going over the single most impressive speed feat in all of Naruto. As we know by now, Momoshiki created his dimension, and as we've already established, it's universal in size. This is impressive because while they were fighting, it was stated that he was also draining it and reaching beyond it, meaning he can drain and reach his entire chakra between even beyond a universal distance within a short time frame. If we just assume it took the entire duration of their fight, which we see in the anime took around 4 minutes and 21 seconds, Momoshiki would be able to drain or go at speeds over 11 million times the speed of light. And this is something impressive about this, is the fact that a base nerf Naruto could react and somewhat fight this Momoshiki, meaning just a base Naruto would be in these speeds, and in his strongest he would completely and utterly surpass these levels of speeds. And Naruto's most notable abilities are his multi-shadow clone jutsu, in which he creates clones to help him fight. At his lowest, he can create upwards of 1,000 clones, or he can make as many as there are leaves on a tree, which average trees can range upwards of 200,000. He as well has increased range with Sage Mode, can negate durability via attacking cells with Rasen Shuriken, has soul manipulation as he can see and interact with his own soul via grabbing it, and also resistance as he could resist it being stolen. Has high level sensory and cosmic awareness as well as non-physical interaction, as he can see and sense and interact with Madara's limbo clones, which are stated to not only be completely invisible but can be interacted with normally, as they are beings that reside in an adjacent dimension. Can even grab onto Kaguya's realms themselves. And lastly, he has resistance to power nullification as well as existence erasure, as he can interact and kick truth-seeking orbs, which are stated to not only negate all jutsu, but can permanently damage and kill Edo Tenseis, even right down to the soul. After going to all parties' respective stats, we can just see this is completely one-sided. Even giving Luke the low ball, he's still beyond infinitely stronger than them. And for Sasuke's abilities, they're not even worth mentioning as they're essentially worthless in this fight. Luke essentially has an omnidirectional, omnipresent conceptual attack that can one-shot any one of them. And thank you again for the donation, George, it truly helps, and that'll be all y'all. Tune in next time.